think sometimes we get so stuck on the literal of like, what are we actually doing?
Yeah.
That's not actually the point. Right.
And we make sure that every day we spend more time feeding the good, true, and beautiful than we do feeding the monsters and demons.
And it was like, I don't want to think about it, because the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking about all the things I didn't do.
With over 30 years of life coaching experience, Dr. David Baum has seen every type of conversation. Today, he and I sat down to talk about the importance of connection through conversation and what it means to find your tribe. This is Lived Words with Yuvan Rasea.
So, David, I want to start with something that you and I have done together. You taught me about a month ago how to eat fire, which is something I never thought that I would learn.
Yes.
And in that teaching, you talked about how there's something you've taught to people before, right?
Yes.
It's something that you teach often.
Yes.
Why is it so important to you to teach people how to eat fire specifically?
Well, first of all, one never knows where the skills one accumulates in one's lifetime are going to show up in your current life.
Right.
And for me, I spent some time when I was in college and then in graduate school studying circus arts and then traveling with a circus. And I learned many, many, many years ago to eat fire from a guy by the name of Penn Jillette, Penn and Teller. And I went to Hampshire College and he lived in the area. And I've taught over 1,000 people to eat fire over the years. And I have used it as a way to help people create breakthroughs in their lives. Mm-hmm. So there's really 2 or 3 reasons why. The first reason is that it's a differentiation. You know, there are a lot of people in the world who do what I do.
Right.
And it's a way, but very few people I know that do what I do, and I may be the only one that actually teaches people to eat fire.
Yeah.
It doesn't fundamentally ask the question why I do it, but it's just part of the rationale.
Sure.
Second is that it's a very powerful metaphor for, I believe, on how to deal with the challenges of life. Meaning that for most people in life, the question of what is my tolerance and how do I know the difference between what is hot versus what is burning, literally in whatever issues you would want to confront, is something that people have to think about and work on. And so fire eating becomes this really wonderful metaphor that people can learn, that they can play at the edges of something that feels scary and difficult and challenging without getting harmed.
Yeah.
Because there's a reality with fire eating, and I don't encourage anybody who is watching or listening to this to try it, but there is a reality in fire eating that it is not as dangerous as it appears. So the value of fire eating is that what it gives you is actually a limbic brain response, right? A reptilian brain response, which is, oh my God, what am I going to do? And we've all been trained since we were very little not to play or be around fire.
Yep.
But in fact...
except for you.
Except for me. Well, yes. But in fact, the risk is less than the perceived danger. And so it's really about how to be able to override our natural fight, flight, or freeze response out of the limbic brain and respond accordingly, and to actually respond when everything is telling us not to. And so fire eating is a relatively safe, if done with me, if done with certain training and conditions, because I've had never in 1,000 people had an incident, it's a relatively safe place to do that. But finally, the last thing is I never just have people do fire eating alone. I always connect it to a breakthrough they're trying to make in their lives. And I connect it with an idea or something they've been struggling with, trying to create or break through. And then I connect that to a phrase or a mantra or a something that they have, so that in the mind, what happens is if you have a breakthrough experience that goes directly into your brain and a different part of your brain, let's say the neocortex, the rational part of the brain, goes directly in and lodges itself. Most people have a very powerful experience.
Right.
Then the next time they face something that is challenging or hard or tough to get out of bed in the morning or whatever it is, if they repeat the phrase, it calls up in them the experience that they had fire eating, and it gives them a sense of momentum and energy that carries them forward. I'm a very big believer that when one feels frozen, It takes about 8 to 10 seconds of courage. And then if you could just call up 8 to 10 seconds of movement or courage or motivation to create momentum, just the short action of getting out of bed or moving forward, once you start, that momentum will carry you forward. So this helps kind of as the ignition switch. It's a little bit of, in like drag racing, they have a nitroglycerin switches, you know, that propel the car forward. It's a little bit of nitro into the soul, if you will.
Is it so? It's almost like, in what you're saying, is it somewhat like almost like exposure therapy, where it's like you're kind of putting yourself in a situation where you have to have 8 to 10 seconds of courage, and then that teaches you to later have 8 to 10 seconds of courage in other aspects.
Yes. Courage comes from two words.
Right.
Comes from the French word coeur, which means heart, and age, which means Latin to act. So when we have courage, we act from our heart. We act with something in our hearts. But oftentimes people feel that people who have courage don't have fear. That's not a very good definition of courage. True courage is when we have fear, we feel the fear, but then we choose to act anyway.
Right.
And I have yet, in 1,000 people, and by the way, including myself, obviously, I have yet to have ever had the experience that someone is quite blasé when they light that torch for the first time and it comes towards their mouth. And there's like, oh, no big deal. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
Most people get quite, pardon the really bad pun, they get ignited. And it ignites their fears and their anxieties.
Right.
And so it's how do you feel the fear and still act? That's, for me, is what the great lesson of courage is.
Do you feel like in today, like in the world, that people often struggle to kind of muster up those 8 to 10 seconds of courage? Is that something that, is that like a societal thing? Is that just a very human thing that we all kind of always have trouble with that?
I think it would be easy to pivot to societal.
Right.
And I think society can amplify it in a variety of different ways. But I think it's a very human experience. I mean, fear, biologically, anthropologically, sociologically, I guess I could go down all the ologies.
There you go.
Fear is one of the things that kept us alive. If you didn't have fear, you pretty much died back tens of thousands of years ago. I mean, if you didn't have fear of animals, you didn't have fear of the cold, if you didn't have fear of heights, if you didn't have that fear, your genes kind of stopped at you.
Yep.
But in a world that has increasingly, believe it or not, I feel has gotten safer, that genetic hardwiring in our systems doesn't serve the useful function it used to.
Right.
And so we oftentimes have to find ways of managing the fear and moving beyond it.
Right. Absolutely. I want to pivot slightly. You kind of define yourself, or you have defined yourself, as a conversation architect.
Yes.
Something that is a term that I've seen. It's something that I've never heard before.
Yes.
I actually don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you haven't heard it before. It took me about 6 months of playing with brand ideas to come up with it.
Okay.
Right. So
Awesome.
that's kind of cool. I'm glad it does seem to resonate with people. It was a little awkward for me at first, but now it feels kind of the way I talk about myself.
Sounds very profound, but
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
I don't understand it, I suppose.
So here's what I wake up in the morning. I wake up in the morning with a primary goal. This is what feeds me. This is why I do what I do. And what I do is I wake up in the morning to create really meaning in my life and the lives of others with a primary purpose of connection. So I connect, which creates meaning. And the best way I know in my world to create meaning with myself, with others, let's say with you, with people in the world that I work, is I create a meaning through conversation.
Right.
So the phrase is really one, a conversation architect. I'm in it for the conversation. I'm always in it for the conversation. There is no greater joy that I can have than inviting people over for a good meal and to talk about big questions. I'm always in it for the big questions. I don't generally like to hover over the how are you and where are you going on vacation and what I don't want to be like a bore ass about it and be the guy who everyone's going to roll their eyes and oh my God. But here we go again. But I am in it for the meaning.
Right.
In fact, a friend of mine who has done probably over 1,000 particular instruments called Strength Finder, which comes out of the Gallup organization, said that in all the people that she's tested, I have a very unique framing, and it basically measures what is your strengths in terms of how you work and think. She said, more than anybody she's ever met, my greatest strength is creating meaning. So for me, it's what gives me joy in conversation.
Right.
So if that's true with an outcome of connection, if that's true, then how one sets up conversations. Sometimes they happen organically, but what I've learned and what people pay me to do and where my value comes from is in being able to design them in a way so that you basically can accelerate the possibility of having a meaningful conversation or connection with someone.
Right.
And as an architect, basically creates an environment that allows people to live in whatever their wishes are or their hopes or their best selves or the places that they want.
Absolutely.
A conversation architect, the way I would look at it as a job, is to set the context, create the opportunities, the framings, build the platforms, the foundations, the boundaries, the walls, and then ask the questions that take people from A to B faster, smoother, easier, and create that sense of meaning that happens in a conversation. So a good conversation architecture has elements in it. It has elements of safety. It has elements of purpose. It gives good context. It creates space and rhythm. But it also, a good conversation architect understands when too much is too much, because we've all been at tables where someone is dominated or they go on and on, but also wants to elicit more and deeper conversation, deeper meaning out of where it's going, and also knows when there ought to be walls, but also knows when there ought to be space to allow the conversation to evolve in itself, and knowing the balance between what do you initially set up and then what do you trust that the conversation is going to go its own way.
Right.
And all of that is part of the conversation architecture of the way that I work.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's incredible. I'm curious as to because often I had someone likes deep conversations. Actually, my best friend and I sat for about 3.5 hours the other day in my basement, and we talked about life and his life choices and what it means to have connections with people. It was an incredible conversation. It only ended because he had to leave and pick up his brother from something. And so I do love deep conversations, but often it feels difficult, for me at least, to get to them, in the sense that it's you don't want, while we're having a casual discussion, we're hanging out, how do I make it a deep discussion without people being okay, that's kind of weird and awkward, and right, why are we talking about this now when it was a very kind of light moment.
Well, first, I would say there are a few secrets, I think, to do this. And what it does not generally make sense is that everybody wants to have these kinds of conversations.
Right.
So the older that I get, the more I find that a few people, and it's a handful, want to go there. And those become the people that are with me on my journey. In Africa, they have a saying, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others.
Yeah.
So you got to find your tribe for the things that matter to you, right? So certain friends you just hang out with. Certain friends you're a gamer with. Certain friends you go to certain movies. Certain friends you do sports with. But there are certain friends that I have that I will, and I have them in my town. There are maybe a handful of them. And I usually, a lot of them I have as walks. I do it walking. They're the friends that I go for a walk in the morning, and they know the expectation is it's a real thing. And so one of the questions I'll always start with is, how are you doing? then I always add the caveat, really. It's one of my favorite words. Like, it just takes it to a deeper level.
Right.
And they know when we go for a walk, I'm going to go there. And they also know that it's safe space. And they know that there's a sense of reciprocity in it. And that I'm going to go there as well. And they look forward to that. So I find people in a personal realm that don't think it's weird.
Right.
That's the first thing.
Right.
The second is you learn the skills, probably the most important skill, which is the skill of deep listening. And most people don't. Most people listen to respond, or they've already got the script going in their head on what they're going to come back with. And that's generally not particularly effective. And that doesn't really create a conversation. It's more of a presentation.
Right.
And most people listen to be strategic. They don't really listen to connect, and they don't really listen to learn.
Right.
So if you go into it with a desire to connect, that's usually very important. I think it's important to also set context. Like, are you okay if I'd like to use this time to talk with you? I've got some big questions, and I could use some of your advice or your perspective or your reflections on it. I'd really welcome it because you're someone that I value and I trust. That also helps to set it because you're setting the intention other than just kind of announcing it. Because we don't. We are a society that hovers, right? And if you look at a number of folks who are your age, but also, quite frankly, of my age, most of the deep subjects that they deal with come through 30-second Instagram posts.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So they're headlines, and there's nothing wrong with headlines. The problem is, without that kind of depth and specificity, people will assume that a headline is the full picture.
Right.
And they will substitute a headline for the real issues. And real issues, real conversations take time, and they take space, and they have to breathe, and they can't be over-controlled. And if you can think that way and ask questions and listen in that way, and always go into a conversation with the desire to connect, not the desire to contribute, not the desire to stand forth and present, not the desire to show everyone how smart you are, or how good you are, or how balanced you are, how much you have, but with a desire to connect, you're going to be way more effective. Now, in my work, I'm oftentimes hired to bring large groups of people together to connect in different ways, in creative ways, and then reach a sense of consensus faster than you normally would. And that's also part of what conversation architecture is about, bringing people together who may have very different points of view, to get them to share those and hopefully reach some points of agreement about how they'll move forward together.
Right. I think your point about Instagram is so interesting. And like, even not Instagram specifically, but the short form content, the way that we process information, it almost feels like we live in a very kind of rushed society where it's like everything needs to be quick. Like, I need information quickly. I need instant gratification, obviously something that a lot of people talk about. But even when it comes to connection, it's like, I want to just know, right? Let's make it quick. Let's be done with it and move to the next thing and kind of move on. And everything has to kind of be on the schedule. And I feel like that's where we lose out on a lot of this, this depth, because it takes time to get to depth, as you said, right? It takes time to build connection. It takes time to talk about things that are not often talked about. And like if you were going for a walk with somebody, like you couldn't go for a 30-second walk, right? It has to be extended period of time to actually really get something out of it. You have to take the time and do the thing. And that's when you really build connection. That's when you really connect with people. That's when you really kind of learn, I think. And we actually have meaningful discussion.
Yeah. So I have a belief and I have an approach.
Right.
So, or something that could aid your listeners. So the belief is that if you are looking for ideation generally happens. If you are looking for ideation generally happens in fast time, right?
Yeah.
Snap, 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 go, 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 quick, quick, quick. You know, your mom, you know, at Google.
Absolutely.
And what she was doing, it was, you know, meeting after meeting after meeting. Let's get the ideas out. How fast can we move? How quickly can we adjust? Right. So speed has a value and has a purpose. But one of the things that you can't do in fast time is you can't have depth.
Yeah.
And depth is really one of the necessary ingredients to connection. If you think about it, the depth of human connection, the depth of love, the depth of whatever it's going to be, these metaphors of deep connection happen at slow to medium. So if you want depth, if you want ideation, then go fast. Come up with stuff that is quick and fast and keeps energy going and whatever.
Right.
But if you're looking for depth, another way of depth would be nuance is another word I might use that helps speaks to a deeper part of who we are than almost every religious tradition, every spiritual tradition, every practice that people do. It has to be allowed to breathe. It has to have space and time. It has to move at slow to medium, which is why I oftentimes, for my meaningful connecting conversations, I will do them on walks.
Yeah.
Now, partially it's because, and I'm writing a book now about the power of walking conversations. Partially it's because certain actions occur when we are walking that are different than when we're sitting. Certain things are happening psychologically, anthropologically, biologically, these things.
Yeah.
But I think there's something else that is also going on, which is a thing that can help around connection, which is nature. So I believe a lot in principles of energetics and fields, the concept of fields.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go into nature, I live in the woods, in a very beautiful place.
Absolutely.
Really,
Incredible.
I love being here on the water. But if you are in nature, one of the things that nature teaches you is that nothing happens in nature unless it's crisis or high danger. Nothing happens in nature in fast time speed.
Right.
It happens slow to medium.
Right.
Slow to medium. And as fields will affect each other. Like if you go into a place that has a lot of pendulum clocks, eventually those clocks will sync with each other. And they may sync actually to the larger clock. If women who oftentimes house together for long periods of time, they will get on their own moon cycles.
Right.
Naturally.
Absolutely.
We sync our fields to each other. And the general principle is the smaller field doesn't affect the larger field. The larger field affects the smaller field. So when I go into nature, when I'm walking in nature, when I'm around in nature, if I go and I sit in nature, I am going to affect the natural world. I am going to be affected by the natural world way more than the natural world is going to be affected by me.
Yeah.
And so it slows me down. It slows my pace down. It allows a greater kind of depth. And the other thing is that when we are in the natural world, when things happen in the natural world, they happen without ego. Human beings are very egoic, right? We present in a particular way, we look in a certain way, we think in a certain way, we like people to see us a particular way.
Yeah.
But when you go into nature, there's nothing personal that exists. When a rabbit is killed by a fox, when a wind blows over a tree, it's not personal between the wind and the tree or the fox and the rabbit. It's just what is. And so when we are in nature, it changes us to get back to our own isness, because that's what the natural world is.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
And all of that put together gives the conditions for a depth and connection.
Right. Right. That's so interesting. I think that we often, especially today, we often don't spend enough time in nature. I think that is the thing that, in some ways, it becomes harder because there's less and less nature and natural places like this. But I also think that, and maybe some of what goes back to that kind of rushed aspect where it's like it's like, oh, I'll go for a walk tomorrow because I have things to do today. I have work. I have this. I have to do this. I have to, finish this homework. I have to turn in this paper. There's stuff to do, right? There's always stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so I think we get so caught up in the stuff to do then that we forget that like actually going for a walk in nature, taking time, right? Allowing for depth will make you more effective in the work.
Yeah.
Right? It creates a sense of balance. in your brain, in your body. And I think you talked about energy fields, and I think that's a huge thing, right? When you have a sense of balance, everything else kind of becomes simpler because you are able to function closer to your like maximum capacity, right? You're able to really be people talk about the best version of themselves. That's kind of the best version of yourself when you're balanced, when you have that kind of equal pull of, the stuff to do, but also like the being.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be and we have to do. We cannot only just do and not be.
Right. No. Yeah, I think Ram Dass said it. We're not human beings with a spiritual life. We're spiritual beings with a human life. And yeah, we're a society that has becoming increasingly addicted to product.
Right. Exactly.
And I think one of the things that we need to learn, and it's an interesting framing, which is most of us think, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but most of us think that our primary job is to contribute. So we go into meetings, we go in conversations with the intention to contribute. What's my contribution going to be? What am I going to say that is going to be of value? What can I do that is going to contribute to the moving forward of whatever this gathering is? And I think if you go in with the intention to instead connect, which is had by slowing down and listening and speaking first, and be the first to listen and the last to speak, I do think you become more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk a little bit about people and finding your tribe? I think you
Sure.
talked about finding your tribe, and I think that it's such a key point because we often, as I have often struggled to find my tribe, right? Find people who I feel want to connect, want to be in connection with me, and it can often be lonely when you don't have people. You don't have a tribe, or you feel like you don't have a tribe, and there's a sense of isolation. I'm surrounded by people, and yet I'm alone because none of those people are really people that I can have deep conversations with, that I can connect with, that I'm really have that kind of bond with. They're kind of just figures. How do you find your tribe? How does one do that?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question.
It's a tough one, I know, but it's important, I think.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's a tough one, but I think it's a really good question, and I agree with you. I think it's really important, like really important. So I would say, no one's ever asked me this question before, so I'm just going to be talking out loud.
Absolutely.
I think first, you need to know what are the ingredients of your tribe. So you need to know what are the components that you're looking for. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, anything's going to be a solution.
Yeah.
So you have to be very clear about what does it mean to be in my tribe. Now, oftentimes we intuitively know it. You'll hear a parent say, so-and-so has found their tribe. Like Ivan has found his tribe. And what does that mean? But actually to spend some time thinking about what is it that would be important to me to say that I'm home, that I'm with my people. And what does that really look like in practice? Parents spend an enormous amount of time, I do as a parent, trying to teach our kids how to be the best human beings they possibly can.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, and I think research will bear me out on this many times over, that once you reach a certain age, 8, 10, somewhere in that range, and then you start to move into early teenagerhood, what will affect you mostly in what your values are and your behavior are the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So you want to be very selective. So first, knowing that, it's really interesting to think that you don't have to have a tribe of 30 people, but who are 5? So I would say first you got to know what you want. Then you got to find what those 5 are. Then whether that's 5 through interest, it's 5 through curiosity, it's 5 through shared values, it's 5 through interests. Whatever it is, you find what those 5 people are going to be.
Yeah.
You create that image.
Yeah.
And then you start creating invitations. I think the goal is to make And I realize people think it could be a little weird, so you got to do it in a way that doesn't feel weird. But you make the implicit explicit. That is, you take these ideas and then you start to, as if you were putting together a good soup.
Right.
You start to create events or times or gatherings where these friends, your people, come together around something, but you know that you periodically will create both things that we can do together, particularly for people of your age,
Yeah.
things that we can do together. But what you also do is you will seed those gatherings with questions or conversations that deepen and elicit the things that you're trying to value in the tribe. So it isn't just about finding what your tribe is, it's about feeding what that is by promoting what that is, and doing very specific things that bring people together in positive, joyful ways.
Right.
It's about building a community, and communities are built by events that bring individuals together to discover whether the reason we're together has value for us in creating, in weaving the fabric of our relationships. There's a wonderful book by Dr. Robert Putnam at Harvard called Bowling Alone. And it's about this disintegration that we have in our society of people who now bowl alone. And what we really need is we need bowling leagues and churches and all kinds of gatherings where people can organically feel their sense of community. But it's in the finding that sense of community that you can then start to carve out and articulate, okay, now I start to understand what it is that is meaningful for me, what I want. Like, I want people that walk.
Yeah.
I want people that will go for the big conversations.
Yeah.
I want people that can laugh. I want people that love food. I want people that have a certain view of the world about what's important.
Right.
Maybe politically, maybe socially. This is how I start to define my tribe.
Right.
And once I know what it is, then it's much easier for me to start to make it happen.
Right. Absolutely. I was having a conversation the other day about the way that we do activities, I think, because, and so I'll tell a little bit of a story. A friend of mine went to a camping trip last week, I think, with her college. It was a pre-college kind of sort of camping trip. It was like 10 people, and there's 5 guys in that trip, and she was telling me about them who played poker, like no gambling, but just played the game for fun every night for like 5 hours, every single night. And she was like, I don't understand how people can love poker so much. And on one hand, I was like, yeah, that's it's a lot of poker, right? And then I was thinking, okay, well, what do we do together? And she's like, well, we walk. Me and her and another friend of ours go on a lot of hikes. We hike in the woods. We've hiked by the water. We went to a reservoir in Middlesex Fells recently. Beautiful place. And we walk and we talk, and it was such an interesting thing because I was like, I wouldn't walk for 3-4 hours by myself around this reservoir, probably. I don't like walking that much. And it's not that I dislike walking, but I'll walk for a couple hours and then I'll be done, right? There's only so much on my own. But somehow walking with you, 4 hours felt like 30 minutes, right? And it was the doing things with people that really made it a sense of connection. And she was like, yeah, I agree. And then you brought up bowling. And I think that's such a fantastic example because most people who bowl, in my opinion, don't bowl to bowl. Like in the sense that, you know what I mean? It's not like an activity that's like, oh, it's super fun. I really want to go bowling.
Right.
Right. You roll a ball down a lane, and some people really take it seriously, but it's bowling. It's one of those things where it's like you actually do it for the people. It's a community event.
Totally.
Right? It's a group event. That's why you do it. And she was like, yeah, I get overstimulated when I go to bowling places, but I'm trying to be better at that because I want to be able to do these community events with people. That it's a common thing that a lot of people do. A lot of my friends go bowl. I want to be able to go bowl with my friends. And I was like, that's awesome, right? Obviously, don't push yourself beyond what you feel comfortable doing. But if you're stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit to create connection in a certain way, the bowling is not the point, right? It's the people that you bowl with. It's the people that you walk with. It's the people that you play poker with. That's the point.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. We last weekend we had a party at our house that we do every year. It's a bocce party. It's a bocce tournament. And we play it out on the lawn, and I give out prizes and the trophies, and I do a big food event, and people love coming every year to the bocce tournament. They just love it.
Yeah.
And you get a cheesy prize, trophy, you get some good food. But what people love about it is they are doing something which kind of keeps them engaged and connected. But in the doing of something, they're talking with each other.
Right.
And they're sharing stories, and they're talking about their summer and their dreams for the fall. And I think you're onto something, which is the secret is to create enough of a doing thing that then allows people access and an invitation to deeper ways of connecting.
Absolutely. I think sometimes we get so stuck on the literal of like, what are we actually doing?
Yeah.
That's not actually the point of what we're actually doing. It's not about the walking. It's actually about the talking. It's about the connection. It's about the time with people. It's not about the walk.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah. And for some people, to be clear, it is.
Sure.
But it's not always just that.
Yeah.
There's always something else going on. In one of the lessons I learned in my work is that sometimes what you need to do is you want people to have the conversation without having the conversation, right? So you could go at it and say, I really want us to have a deep, meaningful, connecting conversation. Sometimes people go, oh, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But you can set the context and the environment through bocce, through bowling, through walking, through pickleball, through whatever it is. You can set the context that then allows you to have the conversation of
kind
depth and meaning without having the conversation. And that's a skill.
Right. Absolutely. Can we talk about your why?
Yeah.
Because your why is, and correct me if I'm wrong.
One second. Do you need some water?
I have one. I got like a little scratch in my throat.
Okay.
To create connection without dots.
Yes.
Right. And I read that, and I read it again, and I asked my sister, and I asked my mom, and we all had different ideas of what dots were when it came to connection. And I'm curious, and when you came up with this, when you thought about this, when you realized this, creating connection without dots.
Yeah.
What is a dot?
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled that you each had a different interpretation. I'd love to hear what they are.
Absolutely. I think my mom and I talked a lot about her idea of dots being something that was, this is a couple days ago, dots were something that were like differences between us, and you're trying to create connection across differences. And I thought that was an interesting interpretation. I almost thought about it like it was dots were kind of obstacles to connection, and you're trying to get around those obstacles. Things like we just talked about, where people are like, "Oh, that's kind of too much to talk about," but get around it by creating an organic environment. I forget what my sister had said, but it was we all had kind of a slightly different idea of what a dot was, and I was like, "Man, I have to ask David, what is a dot? I have to know. The world needs to know what dots are."
The world. Here's what I can tell you. First of all, that you each had a different interpretation is part of the why. It's to give people the freedom to make connection in different ways. I'll tell you what came up for me when I came up with it. First, the visual image, connecting without dots. When you hear that or see that, what most people do is they think, these are dots, and they can see the line go from thing to thing. So first is connecting without dots is how do we connect without usual form, right? That's an important thing. People have in their mind, you go from point A to point B to point C to point D. That's what connecting the dots means.
Right.
You are connecting assumptions, you're connecting beliefs, but that there's a roadmap to that. And sometimes there isn't.
Right.
So one is it's an encouragement to go, in some regards, outside the box. There's a very famous, what kind of inspired me a little bit, there's a very famous puzzle called the 9-dot exercise.
Okay.
And it has 3 dots, 3 dots, 3 dots. And I think it's it's something like, can you connect all of the dots without crossing over any of the lines?
Right.
And that's the puzzle that you have to figure out. And it is impossible to do so if you stay within the 9 dots. You can't do it. The way you actually do it is you take your first line and you go outside the natural perimeter, right? So if the bottom line of dots is here, you go outside the natural perimeter and you go this way and this way and this way and this way. And then that's it. You have to think literally outside the box.
Yeah.
So connection without dots is a way, first for me to say, connection sometimes means that you have to go outside your assumptions. You have to go outside your normal processes. You have to think in a more expanded way. That's the first thing. That's the first implication of it. The second thing is from a more spiritual component, and this is personal, and I've actually never shared this with anyone, for the world, first time.
For the first time.
Is that there's an implication when we say to connection without dots. The implication is when we connect with dots, it implies that there is a place to go, and that when you fulfill the task of connecting dot to dot to dot, you've created a kind of a wholeness, if you will. And I sometimes want to challenge internally for myself the assumption that unless we do something, we're not whole and perfect as we are.
Right.
So connection without dots is also, for me, a personal reminder is that we're fine just who we are.
Right.
That we may not have to do anything to be just perfect, to be just fine. That I and you and anyone who is listening or watching are okay where they are.
Right.
That you don't have to do anything, to just that you can accept that you are enough.
It's a hard thing to think about.
Oh, it's an incredibly hard thing to think about. It's incredibly difficult to think about. And that's why I've never talked about it before.
Fair.
That's why at almost 70, I'm still working on it. And that's why I'm, it's part of the inner foundation of how I try and see myself in the world.
Right.
That, that I want to grow and develop and deepen and, be a better person in many ways. But also there's a part of me that in order to do that has to also accept that I'm just fine the way I am, no matter what.
Right. I think there's an aspect of being comfortable in ourselves.
Yeah.
And feeling that we are, and you put it very well, that we are kind of enough as who we are. And it almost feels like the way that we think about others has become so skewed to what have you done? What are your accolades? What are your achievements? How much money do you make? Right? What are your grades like? Right? It's things that are so material that often say little about what the person actually is as a human being. That it's hard, and even not little, but just doesn't hold the whole picture. Right? There's more.
Yeah.
And I think that we get so caught up in that of our thinking about human beings as numbers and letters on a page, that we lose the authenticity. And I think that makes it difficult as someone to think about ourselves beyond those numbers, because it feels like everybody around us is thinking about us just from the numbers.
Yeah.
And so then it makes sense logically. Well, okay, then I must just be the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, you more than me, I think in the world in which you operate. Excuse me one second. Fantastic. Bald eagle just flew right by. So I know this must be a very meaningful conversation.
That's incredible. I missed it.
Yeah, well, most didn't. Sorry, viewers, you missed it too. I'm always looking. Remember, I was talking about I spend time in nature, the fields.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for affirmations.
I should have sat on that side.
Pardon?
I should have sat on that side.
Yeah, you should have.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, yeah. So, more than I do that we live in a world of constant assessment. And that's really one of the major dangers of social media. Probably the most one that people talk about. It's that people are focused on their phones and they're constantly in comparison, right, to other people. So that's a real challenge. I'm sorry, I can't remember, I got thrown off my game. What were we talking about?
We need to leave this in. That was incredible. Like I don't want to forget to
Yeah.
to leave this in.
So, but what were we talking about?
We were talking about connection without dots and judging ourselves.
Yeah, judging ourselves. Yeah, so we are very tough self-critics of ourselves. And I think what we want to do is, in this world of technology, we want to start to recalibrate how we assess what is meaningful for us and what is important. And are we assessing it by number of followers? Are we assessing it by how many clicks we get? Are we assessing by what I look like through filters versus what you look like through filters?
Yep.
All of that, my grades, my job, my income. We are a society that is constantly assessing. So a big teaching for me on this came many years ago. I was in India. I was in South India, and I was in a temple, Ganesha temple. And it was an incredible temple that was carved literally in a mountain. So you went into a mountain that went up and up and up. It had statues carved into it and stairs, and you go into a room and there'd be an elephant that was blessing someone. I mean, it was just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And as I'm coming down the stairs on my way, I see a man, and he's sitting in a corner, and he just is the poorest, most, I don't know what word I would use, downtrodden. I guess it would be a judgment word, but he was matted hair. He was a leper, so he was missing parts of his hands and his feet. He had only a filthy red loincloth on him. He had a tiny little begging bowl, and he was the most despair of anybody that I had seen in India, which is, for any of your listeners who've been to India, that's saying something. And as I'm coming down, I'm doing that kind of thing where I kind of want to look, but I don't want to look. I don't want to make him uncomfortable, but I do. I don't want to bring my Western thing into it. I'm doing all of that in my head. And he catches my eye, his jaundiced eyes, and he looks at me, and he says to me one question. He looks at me, he says, "Are you happy?" It stopped me in my tracks. And I thought, oh yes, actually, I'm very happy. And huge smile comes on his face with about 4 teeth in his mouth. And he goes, "Me too."
That's awesome.
And I realized that conversation, whatever it was, that teacher that showed up for me was the reason I went on a pilgrimage to India for a month.
That's incredible.
To have that conversation. Because in that moment, a guy who, by every standard that I would have in a world where we are all chasing happiness, every standard that I would have about wealth and physical health and all of that, it didn't matter to him. He was as happy, if not happier, than I was.
Right.
And so I think we are in a period of time where it really requires us to take a deep reassessment of how we judge what success is for us, how we measure what we want our lives to be, and realize that there are things that we don't know or see that we probably need to lean more towards, and let some of the things that technology and society are currently telling us in the West to let go of some of those things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an incredible story.
Yeah, it was a good one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. I think happiness is such a thing that it's like, I feel that like I should be happy. And I wonder if by feeling that I should be happy, because if someone in such a situation that you just described, that man could be happy, then who am I to say that I'm unhappy in the world that I'm in? And I have the resources, and I'm able to talk to you and do the things that I want to do for the most part. And it's hard to kind of conceptualize, well, if all these people, someone like that can be happy, then how can I be sad? Like, so there's so many people with much worse problems than I. And I think we get into this kind of comparison loop where it's like, well, I'm better off than them, so I should be happier than them. But maybe I don't have to be as happy as this person because they have more money than me, which is not really how it works.
Yeah.
Clearly, as you just explained.
Yeah.
Right? How do we get out of that comparison? Because it's a constant like, well, what am I compared to this person? What am I compared to this person?
Well, I think the first secret, and I'm going to run contrary to popular evidence. If you were to Google the word happiness, I don't know how many millions of hits you would come back of articles and so on and so forth written about it, commentary made. I think of happiness as an outcome. not as something we go for. We are happy because of other things. I think a better perspective to go for is to go for contentment. Where am I contented? Where do I feel a sense of content? And contentment doesn't imply happiness. It's a different state. And happiness is an outcome that often comes when people feel a sense of contentment. Right. The second thing is, I would say, is to be happy all the time, or even to be contented all the time, is not the nature of what the human experience is.
Yeah.
Just isn't. I think the secret is to feel everything. The secret is to welcome everything. I think the secret is to listen to everything, to trust everything that you feel without judgment. All the discontented feelings that we have, the frustrations, the parts of ourselves that really don't serve us well, and we all have those things. Jung originally referred to it as the shadow parts of our nature, right? They serve a purpose. And the purpose is that they oftentimes were created when we were very young, and their purpose is fundamentally to keep us safe.
Right.
So the feelings came up as a way of a protection mechanism. Right. We all are members. I have a great teacher that used to say we're all members of the scar clan. We all have scars. We're all members of that.
Yeah.
So it's not in psychology. Oftentimes the phrase is what you resist will persist. So the way that I oftentimes think about it is you spend some time and you think about if you had a big dining room table, and around this table are all the parts of yourself that you know to be true. There's the part of myself that's loving, and the part of myself that is kind, and the part of myself that is joyful, and the part of myself that is smart, and the part of myself that is a good husband and a good father, and all of that. But there's also the parts of me that can move into comparison or judgment, or the part of me, there's a part of me that sometimes doesn't want to get too close, or the part of me that can sometimes pontificate a little bit too much to show everybody how smart I am. I have all those parts inside of me. And the secret is you want the other parts to be stronger, bigger. You're more attentive to those parts, the parts of the positive parts of you. And those parts of you that are the lesser parts that you don't really like that much, that you're not your strongest pieces, those parts, what you want is you keep them at the table. You keep them, you don't try and banish them, because where you try and banish them, they oftentimes will come back.
Right.
What you do, in fact, is you kind of put them in a corner. You don't put them at the head of the table. You don't feed them the gourmet meals.
Yeah.
But you put them in the corner and you say, look, I appreciate that you're here for me. I know your purpose is to keep me safe.
Right.
That judgmental, snarky part of me. I know that you exist really to keep me safe, because I was hurt when I was a kid. And that is a way that I protect myself. And I'll call you if I need you. But I don't need you now. And when I do, I'll call you up, and I'm glad to know that you're here. And so that's kind of the way that I think about it. There's a really famous story that is told from native traditions. And the story is about, I won't go into the length of the story, but the story is about that we each have two wolves inside of us. And these wolves are always in battle. I don't know if you've heard this. It's a very famous story.
I don't think so.
And it's a grandchild that comes to a grandmother, and this is a story the grandmother says. And they said, and one of these wolves is the voice of our positivity and our hope and our self-enhancement, our self-affirmations. Native peoples will call this the good, true, and beautiful. Another wolf that is inside of us is the voice of self-diminishment and fear and doubt and self-criticality.
Right.
And these two voices are always in battle. They're always in war. And the grandchild asked the grandmother, well, which one is winning the battle? And the grandmother said, the one that we feed the most. The one that we feed the most. So the way we kind of work with this issue is we identify what are the positives and we identify what are the negatives that we have inside of us, honestly, fully.
Right.
And we make sure that every day we spend more time feeding the good, true, and beautiful than we do feeding the monsters and demons. Because what wins in the end, always, what wins in the end always is what we give most attention to, what we give most energy to, and ultimately what we feed.
Right. Not to be cynical,
Yeah.
but if you could, what does that actually mean in the sense of how do we feed the good, true, and beautiful?
All right.
Literally,
Yeah.
right?
I'll give you a couple examples.
Yes, please.
Practices for your listeners. First, here's something that you can do every day. Right before you go to sleep at night, you do something in Africa they call heart cradling work. Put your two hands over your heart, one hand over your heart, one hand over your solar plexus here, or your, right here. And right as you're falling asleep, you just review your day and you think about all the things that you did well that day. All the things that you did well. Oftentimes, what'll come in is a kind of the sneaky parts of our ego, and they'll say, "Yeah, but you didn't do this right," or "Jan, you could have asked that question differently," or "You went, it wasn't as good as you think." You got to banish that. You got to be very disciplined, right. And all you do is you take a few minutes, and you think about what is that you did that you're really proud of.
Right.
Now, what happens is that the unconscious mind never fully goes off, right? It's always working. Yeah. And the conscious mind is when we're awake, like you and I are in our conscious minds as we're talking most of the time. But when we go to sleep, the conscious mind goes off and the unconscious mind goes to work. Right. And what the unconscious mind looks for is it looks for energy. Right. It's looking for a job.
Right.
And where it will go is it will go to that which is the last thing that we put into our mind before we went to sleep. So if you just focus on the things that you did well that day, right before you go to sleep, while you were asleep, the unconscious will start to work through dreams and through other forms to kind of build you up and support you and help to create the foundation of positivity and the good wolf, so to speak.
Yeah.
One idea. Second idea. I don't think it's a bad thing in total for people to be aware of a word which is very popular to us right now, which are triggers. We talk a lot about this. This triggers me. I'm triggered by this. There's a level of self-awareness there, which is good. I hear it way too often.
Yeah.
And it is, from my point of view, creating a society of individuals that are hypersensitive,
right.
And also seeing themselves as victims of the world.
Right.
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 So I'm triggered by this. This is a trigger for me. When you say that, I'm triggered. And sometimes it gets into, I'm sure you know, levels of absolute absurdity.
Absolutely.
That shock me. But by doing that, by focusing on our triggers, what we're focusing on is our monsters and our demons. Again, in context. Again, it's important for us to have self-awareness.
Yes.
But it's the amount, it's the out of balance.
Right.
So my wife has taught me an alternative, and the trigger is important. But you also have to remember you're training yourself. You're training yourself to look for what's not working. You're training yourself for the negative. You're training yourself for hypersensitivity. You have to balance that out. What you feed the most is you feed it by something called the glimmers. And the glimmers are, if you go through your day and you think, oh my God, what a beautiful, look at the light on the pond. Or you look for, what a great interaction I just had. It was such a smart thing that was just said that just then. Yeah. If you balance out and have way more glimmers than you have triggers, if you're looking for both and you're sourcing the glimmers way more than the triggers. Now, how much? Minimum of 3 to 1, and I could give you a lot of research on that. Upwards of 5 to 1, 6 to 1, 7 to 1, 8 to 1. You will start to develop a much more positive and optimistic way of seeing the world.
Right.
Because you'll be training yourself to look for what is working versus the trigger stuff, which is train yourself to look for what is not working.
I really feel like we focus a lot on negatives.
Oh,
right?
Totally.
It's all the time. And so I'll give you an example. This is something that my mom had me and my sister and her do, where we had to make a list of victories. And a list of victories essentially was every day, at the end of the day, for about 5 minutes, think about the day, think about a few victories. One, even if just one. What's like one thing that was you like did that made you feel like you had a victory, like a win. right? What's one win from the day, right? And the goal is to have, maybe 10 or so by the end of the week, and we share them at the end of the week with each other. We talk about our list of victories, and that's that. And in some ways, it kind of fell apart, the idea, and I think it's a great idea, but it fell apart because I would sit there at the end of my day, and I would sit there for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I couldn't think of a victory. But I could tell you all the losses that I had that day, right? Because those come easily. If I had thought about, if there was a list of losses, I would have had a list easily, right? I couldn't think of a victory. I was like, what did I do today that I did well? I was like, well, I got to class on time. Well, that's not really a victory. Maybe it is. Maybe it is for that day. But well, I got to another class late, or I got to class on time, but I forgot my pencil, so therefore it's not a victory. And I was finding these kind of reasons to make my victories less. And that's a very simple one, but to make my victories less victory, right? To give an excuse of like, oh, that's why I won. I didn't really do anything. I didn't really win. I kind of just, lucked into it, right? And it just happened to happen. And it wasn't really something I did. And I think that we do that often, and we do it less with other people. I think we give other people more credit
Totally.
often for what they have done, right? It's like, if you came and told me that, I was like, well, you got class on time, right? So then that's the win there, right? You have to appreciate the win because, yeah, you didn't, you forgot your pencil, but you got to class on time. And yesterday you didn't. And so that means you won today. That's a victory for you, right? But for me, I'm like, well, I didn't get to class on time yesterday, but I had a pencil. And today I didn't have my pencil, but I got class on time. And so I failed both days, right? And it's that kind of self-critic that we have for ourselves. And we talked about this earlier. But it's so strong. And I couldn't do the activity. I really couldn't. And I would come into this Saturday or Sunday, and I'd have like one thing, and I'd be like, I don't know. I couldn't think of anything else. I literally don't know what else I did today, any day this week, that I felt like I really won. And I think when you get into that cycle of like, man, I'm not winning anything, it gets even harder to feel like you're winning, because the more you feel like you're losing and everything, the more reasons you find to lose, right? The easier it gets to be like, well, of course I lost again, because I'm losing always. And so then you stop trying to find victories. At some point, I wasn't even doing it. I was like, I didn't win anything today. I just know I didn't. So I'm not even going to try. I'm not going to sit there and think. I sat there for 2 minutes. Okay, I'm going to bed. Couldn't think of anything. And it was like, I don't want to think about it, because the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking about all the things I didn't do.
Yeah.
Right? That it's like, that's overwhelming. So I'd rather just not think about it at all.
It's really interesting. I don't have easy solutions, but I do have a couple thoughts and reflections. There's a saying in my business, if you talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself, you wouldn't have any, right? So totally agree with we don't talk to our friends that way, but we talk to ourselves that way. We're very harsh. We can be very harsh self-critics. I think for me, part of the and it's advice. I'm not even sure it's an opinion. It's just the way I see things.
Sure.
Is that it's a practice. Like meditation is a practice. Like kindness is a practice. Like being a good friend is a practice. It's a practice to be a good friend to ourselves.
Right.
And what I would say is, that you just start and you keep doing it until it becomes a reality. So it may feel initially inauthentic to you.
Right.
But if you do it enough, like if you're trying to practice a forehand,
right.
Or you're trying to practice the piano, it will be awkward at first.
Right.
But then it becomes ingrained and it becomes more fluid and more natural to you. And that can also open the doors.
Right.
So the recommendation is, even though it feels a little awkward at first or inauthentic at first, do it anyway. Do it anyway. Because first, the judgment that you bring on yourselves, again, for most of us, is a protection pattern that is a response from some form of trauma.
Right.
That's important to do. So you understand. And then the second is, fake it till you make it. I mean,
Absolutely.
you do it until you start to have it become part of your natural rhythms.
Right.
And that could take a month or two, but it's not a bad thing to spend your time and energy on.
Fair. Very fair. David, can you be friends with your family?
Yes. That's a
Okay.
really good question. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
I've heard so much difference of opinion on this, and that's why I'm curious as to what you have to say.
My wife, her two sisters are her closest friends. Our children are without doubt their best friends, our son and our daughter. Um, my wife would also tell you that I'm her best friend, and I am, and I think that's one of the foundations of a really good marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my brother is a very, very close, if not best friend. We talk about every day.
Yeah, awesome.
And it took us longer to get there.
Right.
Because there were the necessary conflicts that occurred and the struggles that occurred and the challenges and the hurts and, the histories that we have.
Right.
But, and we became friends, like really close friends, not as children, but as adults.
Yeah.
When we found there was a reason for us to be together, and we started actually valuing and seeing that the other had a perspective and a point of view
Right.
that I shared and was important. A family has something that non-family members don't. They have a shared experience
Yes.
that is
absolutely.
very deep.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's very difficult and challenging and create real problems, and sometimes it's like there is no my parents are dead. So for my brother, who's 10 years younger than me, nobody has witnessed his entire life other than myself and my two sisters. He's the youngest.
Right.
Nobody. So I have had the experience of witnessing, of seeing him his whole life. I have known him his whole life.
Right.
Every second that he's been on the planet, I have stood witness to that. There has to be a real value in that. Also, because it can be challenging historically, both parties really want to make that happen.
Right.
It's like if you have a marriage and one party wants, or a relationship, and one party wants to have a loving relationship, the other is, I'm just not that into you. It's not going to work. So, but if both parties have that intention and are willing to work on it and also give time
Yeah.
and effort
Yeah.
and create rituals that make that happen, then absolutely the answer is yes.
Got it. Absolutely. I think it's one of those things where I almost feel like the difference in my mind, at least the way I think about it, is that family, you don't choose your family, right? In the sense that, your siblings are the way they are. You didn't choose them. You didn't choose to have them. You didn't choose to create them. Like, they existed. I have two younger sisters, right?
Right.
I didn't choose to have sisters. Not that I wouldn't choose to not have. I would choose to not have sisters. I love my sisters unconditionally. But it's almost that point where it's like, if your friends suck, then you can go get. It
New
sounds
friends.
awful, but you can go get new friends, right? And we talked about earlier, like in finding your tribe. Like, you can find your tribe among
Right.
your friends, right? You can
Right.
go find the 5 people that actually are, your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
If your siblings don't connect with you, that sucks. Like, you know what I mean? In some sense, that's kind of how it is. And you have to find other ways to connect or figure something out. And I almost feel like that's what makes it so much harder. And I would agree that I think you can be friends with your family, but I think that it makes it so much harder because you have to try harder to become friends with your siblings than you would with someone who you can actually find somebody who you don't already have connection with anyone, but you can connect a little bit quicker with.
Right. Well, two thoughts. First, I work with family businesses,
Yeah.
and they're more complicated.
Yeah.
And the reason they're more complicated is because you can't fire a family member,
Yeah.
right? So it's got that similar kind of dynamic. It
Right.
is a kind of a choice. And, I think, sorry, one of the senior moments I've forgotten what the hell I was going to say. siblings. Friends, what is it going to take? Well,
It's all good.
it doesn't work with everybody, but it is a choice. I have 2 kids. They're mine,
Yeah.
right? But they're my stepchildren.
Okay.
I got them I met them when they were 5 and 3, and now they're 40 and 38. So it's been a long, long road.
Yeah.
And I've never liked the term step parent because a step parent implies a kind of diminutive role,
Right.
right? So they have a different relationship. I'm a chosen parent. You know, they love their father, they love their mother, but I have a different quality in the relationship in that they choose me. They choose me. There's no biological thing that happens.
Right.
I have to, and they have to put the time and the energy and make that choice.
Right.
And that, in some ways, I love. Now, what I would say about being friends with your siblings, this is the thought I remembered. How old are they?
One of them is 16. The other one is 11, almost 11.
Okay. And how old are you?
17.
Okay. I'm going to say this very clearly. You have no idea where this relationship with your siblings is going to take you. At 17 and their age, I can't remember where they was.
16 and 10.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah.
When I was 17, my brother was 7. He was like a little pain in the ass. Couldn't stand the little fucker. He was so in my business all the time.
Yeah.
I remember when he was younger, he got into my drawers going back in the day, found my stash of pot and flushed it down the toilet. I was very unhappy.
Yeah.
And then there was some traumas in my family, and then I went off when I was kind of like, he was, I was about 18, 19 and my father died, and I went off to find my way, and he was 8 or 9 and 10, and he felt abandoned. He had issues back then, and we were not very close. And then we became adults, and we took a trip together down the Grand Canyon, and I couldn't believe who this person had talked to, turned into. He was funny and smart and loving, kind, and that cemented us as friends.
Right.
So if there is an intention to stay connected, particularly as you have younger siblings,
Right.
they're not adults yet,
Right.
and you're just in the threshold of adulthood.
Yep.
I would say hold for the possibility of friendship. Know that friendship requires time. Friendship which requires sometimes maturity. Friendship requires commitment. All the things that you would have in a non-family friendship.
Right.
And if you start to create those ingredients, like with the tribe, you extend deeply the possibility. It may not happen, but it really very much could.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is an incredible conversation, David. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I end every episode with the same question. What are some words you choose to live by and why?
I have 2.
Okay.
2. One is a short couplet by the poet Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi, and then the other is a quote by the Catholic theologian Meister Eckhart.
Okay.
The quote by Rumi is, "Move from within. Don't let fear move you the way it wants to. Begin a foolish project." Noah did. Begin a foolish project. Noah did. I think the world moves on foolish projects. I think we have fears that want to move us, and I work hard not to let those fears move me the direction it wants to. Right. And I'm always looking for interesting, foolish projects to contribute to, of which will feed my own foolish project, which is myself and my own life. So that's one. And the second is by Meister Eckhart, who said, "The outer work will never be great if the inner work is small." Whatever you try and do in the world, regardless of what it is, make sure that it is matched, if not exceeded, by the own inner work you do in your own personal transformation, and make that a lifelong exercise. And those are the 2 things that guide me.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
You're welcome. Best of luck.
Thank you.
This is a foolish project. I love it.
There you go.